Welcome to the webinar. Today, we are going to be talking about creating a culture of accountability. And we have a special guest here today, Brett Neller, CEO of LineLeader. So I just want to welcome you here as you're popping onto this webinar. I'm coming to you from Land O'Lakes, Florida, which is just north of Tampa. So if you're joining us, let's see if we can have you jump into the chat box and introduce yourselves with your name and where you're joining from. And I am the Business Development and Channels Relations Director here at InspireCare. I've got over 17 years in education. What I enjoy the most is supporting the needs of our early childhood educators, directors, and owners, supporting them so that they can focus on offering the best learning environments possible. Welcome. We've got some from, Patrina, welcome. Alexa from Houston, Kathy from New Jersey, Christy from Northwest Texas. Welcome, Tanya. Welcome, Nardri. I hope I said that right. I apologize if I didn't. Welcome, Sandra. Tanya from Texas. I am coming to you from Land O'Lakes, Florida, where we're finally getting some sun after, a last cold couple of weeks. I'm just north of Tampa. If you're just now joining us, go ahead and drop your name and where you're joining us from in the chat box here. As you can see on this slide, my email is up there. Feel free to, send me a message later or ask any questions. You're always welcome to reach out if you have questions after this webinar or any questions about InspireCare 360. Welcome, Kim from Michigan. Hannah, welcome. Let's see, Karen from Brooklyn. We've got lots joining us. As you're joining us, please drop your name and where you're joining us from. So while others are joining us, just want to mention a few pieces here. I want to take a moment to direct you to the chat box. So throughout our webinar, you're able to, drop comments in the chat box. And then we also have a Q&A box. So you can use this to drop any questions that you have throughout the webinar. And we're going to be monitoring. I'll be monitoring those questions and we'll see if we can get those answered during your webinar. We'll keep an eye on these. So welcome. As you're joining us, you're letting us know where you're joining us from and your name. And this afternoon, we've just got a few housekeeping issues. So our agenda today is, let's see, we're going to learn about InspireCare 360 and everything that we have to offer. In particular, we're going to introduce our AskRegi to you, as well as our star rating and reputation management system. We're going to have a chance to meet our guests. We'll be having a discussion and then hang out for our special offer, exploring our solutions. We'll get you a $30 gift card. So lots in store here for you. And just a reminder that if you're seeking CEU certificate for this webinar today, we're going to be dropping a link here in just a moment for you in the chat box. And you'll be clicking that link and want to get that filled out so that you get your CEUs for today. And I will actually be getting that. Let me introduce you first to our host, Mr. Tony D'Agostino. It's my pleasure to introduce him. Tony not only owns and operates his own ECE schools, but he's the founder and CEO of InspireCare 360, as well as a great mentor and teacher. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, Danielle. I hope you're doing great. And I got a feeling when you talk about it being sunny in Florida, people are probably a little more jealous of you than anything. So
I apologize. Maybe I shouldn't have rubbed that in.
I noticed a few people from New York and Chicago and what have you. And that's where I think our guest is from too. So we're going to get to that. So thank you so much, Danielle, for getting everybody welcomed and introduced. And I will take the baton over from here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Well, everybody, welcome very much to InspireCare 360's webinars. We're really grateful that everybody has been able to come today. We are recording this, so we will be able to send a copy to anybody who has registered. That means if you're attending or not, you would get a copy of this. One thing I wanted to point out quickly, something over here to the left-hand side, you're going to see a brand new logo. InspireCare 360 is just introducing its brand new logo. hopefully, you know, we put a lot of effort into things like that. So hopefully it's something that resonates with who we are and what we do, but we try to encompass the whole back office, hence the little Saturn circle around the 360. So with that said, let's continue down and get through a couple of our housekeeping agenda items. I've done this before for those of you who have seen it, or for some of you who have not. We are pioneering the AI space in the ECE childcare world with AskRegi.ai. The concept came from, and really why it's called Ask Regi, was about regulations. The first initial concept came about was about offering access to everybody throughout the country, anybody who's licensed, to their state regulations, whether it be the primary documentation for that, or whether it be, you know, supplemental memos or addendums or things that come out through the year. We are curating all that. It is available in Ask Regi, and you have the ability to make multiple requests against that information. So unlimited regulation inquiries. You can do just general searches for information to quickly get to that information that you want about your state regs. You can have it write a letter for you. Say something has changed in your infant program and you were like, you know what, I'd love to articulate right out of the regs what it is. You can ask Regi and it'll write you a letter. You can create training for it. So if you're doing a staff meeting and you want to do a program, you know, on some regulations about, let's say, fire drills and how fire drills work in your state, you can ask it to build out a comprehensive, you know, course for a half hour or 1 hour, whatever the time length you want, put quizzes in there, put activities, and it's going to build it all for you. One of the most impressive things about it, though, is it is going to help you with your own documents. You have an opportunity to load your documents in and search them, whether it be your handbooks, your SOPs, your health plans, or your family documents. One of the things that we'll talk about in just a moment, each one of these searches gives you reference pages. So whether it be your state regs, it'll not only answer the question for you, but then give you direct access to that. Or if it was for your own documents, it will give you direct access to your own documents. So I'm going to just take one brief second and share what that looks like for you folks, just so you get a sense of it. I want to make sure everybody knows that there is, and it is currently available for you right now for your state and federal regulations, as you'll see the sign in, and it's at AskRegi.ai. Once you come in here, you would be able to sign in below, get your own account, and then choose what default state. You know, I have my childcare schools in New York, but you'll notice all the different states in here, and then you would be able to choose your state. And within that state, you will have a number of other specific documents directly to your state that you have. And you can ask questions across multiple states if you have schools in multiple states. But once you select the school, so for instance, if I'm a group care center, you'll notice it changes down here, and then I can ask a question. And I'm not going to go through that. And I think some of you have seen that before. The really cool addition here is all documents, where you'll see we have now set up where you have executive, office, and public documents. Now, there is an opportunity, and there is going to be a free version of this where you can have one of your own documents in here at no charge, like your handbook, and let your staff ask, questions against that. So there's going to be value for that, but you'll be able to put in here multiple different type of documents you have. Like for instance, you would be able to put in your, parent handbook in here. You could put in, if you're doing a UPK program, for instance, or you have, in your office documents up here, let's say that you have an emergency plan that you want to put in here, or your healthcare plan. So Ask Regi is super dynamic when it comes to those elements. And I hope you all take an opportunity to try it out, to work with it. And if it makes sense for you, there is a free plan, plus there are some paid volume plans for other users. And we're going to continue to move forward. So that is Ask Regi. And also, if you're not familiar with, we offer IC360 Rep. This is a star rating tool. The star rating tool, it's amazing the value of a star rating. If you think about it, with my schools especially, you can have some really good star ratings, but not a whole bunch of them. And all you need is one disgruntled family or a staff member to go on there and really create some chaos for you. The best way, which I've personally learned to protect against that, is to have many, many star ratings that are all honest to goodness star ratings. They're coming from your families. They're coming from your existing staff. They're coming from interviews that you had with staff or from tours. So the whole objective of the star rating tool is to help you support the management of your reputation. In the childcare business, as you can imagine, reputation is everything. It really is. If you have a bad reputation in your community, it is a very deep hole to dig out of. The star rating tool lets you solicit to existing families, to staff, and those other categories too. And if you get a 4 or 5 star rating or above, it puts it right on Google or Facebook or care.com or Great Schools or Angie's, wherever you would like to have it, over 250 different locations. If it's a 3-star or under, it comes to you for your discretion to try to repair that before it ever goes to the public. So it helps you really build that recognizable brand. It is something that you can use for your existing families, your existing staff, but also post-tour. After, how was your tour experience? How was your interview experience? Things that are really important to us as owner-operators. And then it gives you also reporting on your competitors in the area of how they're doing with their star ratings. That's all built in. It also now has an AI tool that we have built into that allows you to then have some automatic best practice responses. So it will let you know that if a response came in, you can automate it and respond to it, because positive reviews with a positive response is double value. You just doubled the value of that response. If you have a negative review and you do not respond to it, okay, that negative review explodes in, the negative value of it. But if you respond to it in a positive way, and you can use like the AI tool that helps you stay in a very positive mode about it, then you will find out that you can help negate any kind of negatives. So it gives you a lot of insights. And if you want to learn more, please put a request in the chat, and Danielle will get a hold of you and set up a time to demonstrate IC360 Rep. But today, Ed Love, the more important thing is Brett. Brett is coming on. Brett is our fearless leader and CEO of LineLeader, formerly childcare CRM and MoenPath, and they've come together to build a second to none childcare management system and environment. And Brett, how are you doing, brother?
I'm good, Tony. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
That's awesome. I'm sorry about us having a little bit of confusion on the front end, but I think we made our way through it, and that's what we do every day, right? Figure out ways.
Absolutely. Power through.
There you go. So today I'm going to be handing this over to Brett, and Brett is going to be talking to you about some things about school operating models that, really help your staff have some structure and direct focus and clarity. It is also about, supporting the operations and understanding who does what, when, and making sure to take out the confusion, take out the surprises, and then setting up the goals, the big attainable, or possibly what you may feel are not attainable goals. But tell us a little bit more about what you're going to talk about today, Brett.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it, Tony. Happy to be here. Want to talk today about just holding how to set up a culture of accountability around within your organization. And a lot of it is, making sure your organization has a North Star, that everybody's aligned to the North Star, that you're super consistent as an operator or leader, executing throughout the year, even when stuff's going crazy and it's chaotic, that you're consistent in your delivery of performance reviews and goal setting and objectives. And at the end of the day, making sure everybody's marching in the same direction at the same beat of the drum, right? That's the big thing, is like staying on rhythm, staying consistent, moving forward, and everybody pointing in the right direction and moving at the same pace and we call it the beat of the drum. You got to keep a consistent rhythm from an operating perspective. And that allows you to people feel like they have transparency in the organization and know everything that's going on. And you never have a question about like, what if you're communicating enough or not. So it's how do you build that culture of accountability around an operating model? And I'll share a little bit of what I've learned throughout my career. There's no right or wrong way, and there's different ways to do this. But what I picked up over my career working for a bunch of different companies and from really good leaders and mentors to make you maybe think about like maybe putting something in place on your own.
And before you go into this, I just want to say it sounds like an amazing, if people talk about culture and they talk about culture and culture, sometimes it's easy to say it, but it's hard to create a roadmap to get there. This sounds like this is a bit of a roadmap to develop the culture of your organization.
100%. And I look at culture in a couple of different ways. There's an engagement piece, like an employee engagement piece to culture, but there's also an accountability piece and performance management piece to culture. If you can bring engagement and performance management together, you're doing something right. So it's how do you balance both of those things to effectively run a really high powered organization?
All right. Well, have at it.
Yeah, so this a little bit about me, right? So I grew up a military brat, moved around a lot. My father was in the Marine Corps 45 years. That's a lot of my DNA comes from kind of, integrity and how the Marine Corps runs things. Not from like a bad way, but just all the good things you can think from structure, balance, and accountability. I learned a lot growing up in that household. Started my career. I'm from Michigan. I was born in Lansing. I saw somebody who's from Michigan on the call. I'm a Spartan, born in Lansing. My mom and dad are high school sweethearts from East Lansing High School. But I started my career after Hillsdale College. I worked for Marriott International, hospitality company. They own Ritz-Carlton as well. So got to work for a couple different brands there. Did some consulting with Deloitte in the military health system around technology rollout, running a program management office, and then did a stint in oil and gas and Chevron and supply chain management. Went back to Marriott at some point down the road, and then I said, "Hey, I'm kind of over this big company stuff, right? I want to go do something really cool. I want to be part of something a mission focused industry." And had the opportunity to interview with the founders of Childcare CRM, Chuck Gibbs and Seth Martin, back in the day. And said, "Hey, like, let me come help you build something special." So the company's been around since 2010. Like Tony mentioned, we made an acquisition of Moment Path, which provided the family engagement and management system in September of 22. And then I've been with the company 6 years. So had a lot of learnings along the way in my career. The three that I like to communicate to our team and like the mantras that I live by is like have perspective, right? There's a lot of stuff that's going on and things are blowing up all around you and you think you could be having a bad day. But at the end of the day, like most of us are really blessed to be on this earth and to be able to serve our customers, whether it's families for care or from our perspective, customers that are operators in childcare centers that use our software. And it's an awesome thing that we get to support a mission-driven industry like childcare. So continue to have perspective, outcome management versus time management. We're not here, like I'm not here to from a leadership perspective to track your hours, right? It's like, what are you producing? And I don't care if you're doing it from 3 to 7 or 8 to 5, 9, it doesn't matter, right? It's all about outcome management versus time management. So we're always looking from a perspective of outcomes, especially at LineLeader. And then the third one I love to live by is it's only a big deal if you make it a big deal. And that goes both ways. Like you should celebrate the small victories with your teams. We try to do that within LineLeader. If somebody does something good for a customer, like we want to celebrate that. That's really, really important. And then also people make mistakes. Like don't make that a big deal either, right? Just move forward, move on, and power through these things. And those are kind of three mantras I've learned along the way that I live by. I'm two children. I'm married to an amazing woman in Kayla. I have a son named Jet and a daughter named Pearl. And I use childcare. We use childcare every day. We couldn't do it without childcare. We couldn't do what we love to do from a professional perspective without childcare. So we rely on operators in the space, just like every other family out there. My happy place is Traverse City, Michigan. I'm a Spartan at heart. I love to golf. But that's a little bit of overview on me from a personal and professional perspective.
Well, I love it. And I'll advance your slides here. Two of the things I like is when you talk about outcome management versus time management,
Yep.
As you say, that's something you learned along the way. What do you think is the trap that people fall in around time management as to outcome management?
I think a lot of it is like from a leadership perspective too. Like I've had managers that, it was a 9 to 5 or it was an 8 to 6. And it was more important for them that I was hitting my hours. They didn't see the stuff I was working on the weekends or after hours. And they lost a little bit of focus around, I was actually doing a good job. I was actually delivering value to the organization, just may have been in a different way than they had traditionally been taught to do or managed to. So I've learned from the good and the bad, right? So it's for me, everybody is a different style. No person works the same. Everybody needs a certain type of environment. And some people are night owls, some people are morning people. And it's at the end of the day, like I personally don't care. And our company doesn't really care when you get the work done, as long as you're delivering value to the organization and you're achieving your goals and objectives. So for me, that was, I've learned from the good and the bad, mostly from people that have managed me that, you're not going to have people that work exactly like you, and they're going to have different motivators than maybe you do. And you have to figure out what those are to motivate them. But it's all at the end of the day, it's what are you delivering for value versus like how much time you're actually spending on a task.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I know we have to be in there because of ratio and things of that nature, but at the end of the day, it's having that mindset. It's about outcomes. It's not really about just the time they're there punching the clock.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 100%. Like anything they can do to make a family experience amazing. It could be, it may not be specifically in the even within the hours of the building, Monday through Friday. Like there's a lot of stuff that people do that go above and beyond that's not recognized that creates value. And you just got to be able to find out what those things are and promote them internally and celebrate them. So
perfect.
Yes. So like we talked to Tony about what we could talk about today was a culture of accountability. How do you create that? And it's really around like developing your internal operating system. And there's 3 different levels for accountability, at least how we view it at a very simplistic ways. Like there's company accountability, there's team accountability, and there's individual accountability. And at all 3 levels, it's about taking responsibility for your results, good or bad, finding solutions to problems and learning from the good, bad, and ugly, and moving on. So from a company perspective, I think Tony, you can go to the next one. Like for us, again, this is from a LineLeader perspective. There's tons of ways to set this up, but from a LineLeader perspective, from a company level accountability, we focus on something called the hedgehog concept. If anybody out there has read the book Good to Great, this is where that concept comes from. I highly recommend it. It's about focusing in and answering 3 questions to know where you need to focus as a company, right? You can't be the best at everything. And in order to understand where you want to focus your efforts and how to execute on those things, you got to ask yourself 3 questions. Like, what are you passionate about? What are you the best at? And what drives your economic engine? It's like no money, no mission, right? And where those 3s intersect is what we refer to as the hedgehog concept. So first things first, and from a company perspective, is like, what are you going to be the best at? Where are you going to focus? And if you can identify that from an organization level perspective and set your mission and set some goals around there, you're going to have your North Star. And that's the first step from our perspective in making sure everybody's marching in the same direction. If you don't answer these 3 questions and you don't know where you're going to focus and you're all over the place, it's really going to be hard for people to buy in and commit to the company mission and make sure everybody's marching in the same direction. So the hedgehog concept is really just honing in on being very, very focused on where you win versus a competitor. Maybe you offer a different type of care or service. Maybe you have a new center that opens up down the road that you think is going to take your business. But how do you position yourselves against them? And they're going to do something better than you all, maybe potentially. But you got to amplify where you guys all focus from operators and where you're going to be the best at.
One of the things I think of, Brett, when you talk about this, it's sort of the Pixar movie that's been out a number of years now. I think it was called Up, and it was about the dog that it would be like squirrel, and immediately it focuses on something else, because us as operators quite often have so much pressure and influence from others. How do you personally manage your focus like this? I think it's a fantastic concept. How do you personally do it?
Yeah, so I go back to, so we answer these three questions internally, right? And we have it mapped out, and it drives really what our mission of our company is. So anytime we're going into strategic planning or we're in a meeting, a staff meeting, I'll actually wear a shirt with a hedgehog on it as a reminder to everybody in the room. No joke, I have like 3 hedgehog
That's
shirts.
awesome.
And when I'll walk in the room and we'll start talking about things, we'll be like, hey, time out. Let's review our 3 questions. Is it inside these circles, or is it something that is outside the circles? And if it's outside the circles, we put it on the side. We say we'll talk about it later, but this is not what this is very different than where we have said we want to be as a company. So it's just making sure that the leaders on the team, and your directors and everybody across the organization can answer these 3 questions. And it's just a constant reminder to, if you're starting to feel like you're veering off course and the squirrel, it's like, ask these 3 questions. And if it doesn't, intersect here in the middle, then you're probably veering off course. So for us, personally, and from a company perspective, that's what we do. We always remind ourselves about these 3 questions. And at the center of this, it's what we call the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And that's in the Good to Great book as well. Once you can answer these 3 questions, you can then say, okay, this is our North Star as a company. And it's a clear and compelling target to strive for. It's a long-term goal down the road. It could be 5-6 years down the road, but you identify exactly what that is. And you say, as a company, this is our long-term strategy to go achieve this BHAG. A lot of companies out there have this, and there's a lot of really, really good examples out there. Like Microsoft's a good one, a computer on every desk in every home. I mean, that's their long-term goal, right? And as a company, that's their mission, and they're figuring out how they can step towards that on an annual basis. But everybody in the company should know their BHAG, or know, where they're focusing and what they're trying to achieve 3 to 5 years down the road. So that's really the first part. This establishes like the company accountability. When you're looking at the company, team, and individual, it's the hedgehog concept, focusing on what you do best and making sure that everybody understands what the North Star is. So anything they're doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, they know that they're stepping in the direction to achieve their big, hairy, audacious goal.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, it really comes across between, like you say, that vision and that mission, where people really understand what they're truly going after, where they're not just randomly just trying to get enrollments, for instance. That's all our mission is, just getting enrollments. I think that's a very short end goal.
Sure. Yeah, there's probably a better enrollment for your organization than in understanding what the better family profile is, or do you want kids with family of 3 kids versus 1 kid? Where are you going to spend your time? And it's really, really important that everybody knows kind of that they're stepping towards the company objectives. The next one's team, right? That seems pretty obvious. You have your company, you have your North Star, everybody's marching in the right direction. And then how do you get from a team level? Like in LineLeader, we have different teams. We have R&D, we have customer success, we have customer support, we have sales, we have marketing, et cetera. Everything that each individual team then needs to be able to understand how they're going to impact the company goals, right? And that is by establishing team goals. So for within the operating system, I think the next slide is a good example here. So we say, okay, hey, this is what we're going to be the best at. Now, on an annual basis, what are our targets? Like, what gets us there in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5? So we put out what we call an annual rally cry. And it's, hey, these are the KPIs from a team level that we're going to cascade down to you that are going to move the needle and allow us to step towards our long-term company objectives, which is our BHAG. And there could be revenue, it could be family retention, it could be enrollment targets, it could be referrals, it could be customer satisfaction, employee engagement, something within these buckets. But every part of your team or every function with your organization are going to be able to impact these in a positive way. And then below that, we have what we call strategic and value creation initiatives. So we say, okay, this is what we're going to do this year. How are we going to get there? What value creation initiatives are we going to put in place to move the needle so that we can hit our target for family retention, hit our enrollment targets, hit our customer satisfaction, and never forget about employee engagement targets, right? Because they're the people that make everything go. So this allows us, at least within LineLeader, to hold the team accountable, right? We do a kickoff every year and say, hey, these are your targets, go attack. These are the initiatives that we all aligned on that are going to help us get there. And that's where you start establishing the goals and objectives for your team.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that I can see where this can clearly apply to schools because, within the programs, whether it's an infant program, toddler, preschool, pre-K, maybe it's the administrative side of your business. You're putting together, it looks like obviously that what we call, the key performance indicators, KPIs, or a scorecard.
Yep.
Let me ask you this. One of the challenges and one of the things that I'm sure you run across all the time is you have talented people, you offer them, some kind of key performance indicators or some kind of scorecards to say, hey, this is really where we're wanting you to go and to meet. When you have people, for instance, like in the childcare space, we're probably not used to having goals and objectives like that. They're like, hey, I came out of babysitting. My objective was keeping the child alive and happy,
Yeah.
So do you have any advice for owners and operators when trying to introduce, sort of your metrics or the numbers that you want them to achieve? What are your thoughts on how you roll that out to people who are maybe not the most familiar or having that kind of experience, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just it goes back to staying consistent with the operating model. The way we get this through to our team is like this supports our BHAG and our mission in our 5-year plan. And I think if you open that up to everybody, even teachers, they want to know where you're headed as an organization. And it doesn't have to be lofty goals. It can be like we want to be rated the best school in the county, right? It doesn't have to be we want to grow 20 schools or open 20 schools, right? But I think for us, what I've found successful where people start to attach and buy into these things and understand why goals and objectives are important is that they understand the company mission and objectives around like where the company wants to go in 4 to 5 years and how that impacts them from a career perspective. Sure. So attaching, not randomly throwing out KPIs. It's the story around the KPIs, and it's explaining how the KPIs impact the BHAG in our 5 long-term North Star. And why that's important for the success of their career because they own their career and the success for the organization. Nobody wants to be part of an organization that's not successful, right? So it's attaching the stories to the KPIs, not just randomly throwing out KPIs saying you have to hit it. It's like, why is this KPI important? Why does it move the needle? And how does it attach to our long-term, BHAG kind of mission objective for our organization?
And I think that's super important because quite often when you think about it, a lot of times we set out these big, hairy, audacious goals. We say these things that we want to go after and attack, and then we offer these KPIs, but it is natural for a staff member sometimes not to relate. How does that get us on the roadmap to success? So you telling the story, I think, is really important.
Yeah, you have to elaborate on the connective tissue between, those KPIs and the long-term objectives, right? And I think if you can do that and tell a compelling story and tell it over and over and over again, so that not only it's not a one-time thing. We talk about this every single month. We do a once a month, we do an all hands in the company. We start out every all hands with our BHAG. We then go to our rally cry, which is our annual goals and objectives. And the third part is the individual component, right? So again, connective tissue between all these three. You have company, you have BHAG, you have the team goals, which is the rally cry, and then you have the value creation initiatives that drive, the overall, goals and objectives for the year. And then you can break it down further and say, okay, as an individual contributor, how do I positively impact and help the company and my team move the needle on these individual goals and objectives? So it's a cascading mechanism within our organization that allows us to do that. And I think on the next slide, we do that through what we call an operating calendar. So this is our operating system. So there's no like magic secret sauce to this, but on an annual basis, we do the same things on a monthly, quarterly, and an annual basis. There's no mystery for our team what we do every year, because it's a rinse and repeat, and that's staying consistent and making sure we're all marching the same beat of the drum. You have to have some sort of operating calendar. So from our perspective, like in January, we always kick off the business plan and the rally cry. We immediately set the goals and objectives for the individuals. We require our team to do our managers to do one-on-ones with their employees. Never miss a one-on-one. You have to stay super consistent with those. On a monthly, we get together. We realign as a company on the all hands. We review the BHAG, we review the rally cry, we review the goals and the goals and objectives. We have a monthly business review as a leadership team to make sure we're all aligned at the leadership level. You're always answering the who, the what, the why. That's the connective tissue, right? Every employee wants to know, whether an individual contributor or a leader, why are we doing it? Who's doing it? What are we doing? And why are we doing it? And that's making sure that you have, you could tell the stories between, the story around why the KPIs are important, or how it connects to the BHAG or overall mission of their company. Quarterly, we do board meetings and we do alignment meetings. We check in on value creation initiatives during that time. And then on a regular basis, we do product advisory board. We do market updates, product positioning, planning, prioritization. Mid-year, we always do a mid-year review. And then we always do a full year review. So we don't get to the end of the year with an employee and they know exactly where they stand and how they're performing against those goals and objectives. They are checking in on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, on their one-on-ones with the manager. The last thing that we want to do is get to the end of the year and an employee to be like, I had no idea how I was doing, and it's every week they should know how they're doing. We formalize it in our performance review system every July for mid-year, and then we complete the performance review completed in December before we kick it off all again, right? And it's rinse and repeat, and everybody knows exactly where they stand at all times, or should. Nobody's perfect, right? Like, I'm sure that we miss a one-on-one every now and again, but the individual piece of like the accountability perspective is your team knows exactly what you're doing on an weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis. And it's the same thing every year, and you stay super consistent. And if you can do that and stay super consistent, everybody feels like they know, like transparently, like how the organization is performing and how they're performing against their goals and objectives, and how that supports the rally cry, which supports the BHAG.
Yeah, which, I think this is wonderful guidance. I know that some of this obviously is very oriented, because this is you talking about how you run your organization. Some of this, by looking at this visual at first, go, that looks intense, but realistically, it's not. It's very straightforward. It has, it's just basically saying, I'm sure most of the owner operators on here do a lot of one-on-ones with their staff. They're not. You probably may want to get started if you're not doing those one-on-ones.
Yeah.
But the planning thing's important. I would say, for some owner operators out there, this may not be completely their strength, but you may find someone like your director or an operations person on your team who really, fits in well with running a program like this and making sure you stay fit. Do you think it always has to be the owner or the CEO who runs this, or can you have other team members who sort of, champion this?
Yeah, no, I definitely, for me as the CEO of the company, I don't execute on all these things, right? We empower our leaders across the organization to own a lot of this stuff. Like the goals and objective setting is a collaboration effort, right? The business plan, that's not a dictation of me, saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is, we get input from the market and we get input from the functional leaders. And then we come together as a leadership team and say, okay, we're aligned here. This is strategically what we want to execute on this year. But it's definitely like a shared effort across your team. And we have individual contributors that we pull in all the time to help contribute to a lot of these inputs, right? To kick off the year. So it's definitely, it's traditionally call it top down, but it's a huge team effort collaboratively across the organization, whether you're individual leader or your manager, to get all the inputs to make sure every voice is heard across the organization. It's some of the best inputs we get are from our support team, right? Like they're in it every day helping people use our software. they have they are probably the most valuable inputs we can get from the organization because they are closest to the users. And in this case, like the teachers are closest to the parents, right? They're probably going to have some really, really valuable inputs on how to improve your organization and establish the value creation initiatives to catapult your organization in the right direction. So huge team effort always on the operating calendar. But it's from your perspective, from like an owner, you have to make sure that the organization stays consistent to this calendar and consistent to whatever operating calendar they put in place. Because as soon as you start to waver, you're like, oh, I'm not going to do a one-on-one. Oh, we'll set goals and objectives in March. Then it starts to crack and fall apart. So as the owner or leader within your organization, your goal is to make sure that the beat of the drum stays consistent, and you support your team to execute on these things.
It makes a lot of sense, especially when you talk about the goals, objectives, putting those things together. Realistically, it is where the team is, where the team's rubber meets the road. If they're part of the development of that, they're going to take ownership of that, as to you just 100%. Sort of mandating what the future looks like for the company,
Yeah.
So some really good advice on that.
Yeah, and this kind of that wraps it up. I have a couple stories I can share from my career where some of this really resonated with me. But every organization, right? Like from a company perspective, you should establish some sort of North Star. Where are you going to be where are you going to win? Where are you going to be the best at? What is your BHAG? From there, you gotta connect that story to the team perspective from on an annual basis. Like what's the team trying to accomplish? Like where do you move the needle? What are the value creation initiatives or strategic initiatives? And then connect that to the individual goals and objectives that you're going to measure teachers or individual contributors on. If you can do that, and it doesn't, and there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat on this, right? It's like you got to find what you're comfortable with. But as long as you stay consistent and you communicate with your team from the outset, then you're going to be in a really, really good spot to accomplish your goals and objectives, or at least know how you're performing against those on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So
and if you want to share a story or two, what were some of the things that may be some of your bigger goals that you try to get rallying around?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different parts of my career. Like I was an individual contributor right out of college, right? And I think from an individual perspective, I'll start there. Like I worked for Ritz-Carlton, and I had a really, really tough boss. I'm a finance accountant, by trade, and had to do some analysis on something. And I took the analysis up to my boss's office, and he doesn't even look at my work. He just says, "Hey, is this your best work?" And like in my head, I'm like, "Is this my best work? Can I actually so I say no. So I go back down to my office. I spend another 4 hours. I bring it back up because it's the end of the day. And he doesn't look at it again. He goes, "Hey, is this your best work?" And I'm like, man, this guy, I didn't want to say it was my best work because there was probably something I missed. And every time I went back to go work on it, I made it better. Right. And I kept making it better and improving it. So I go back to his office the next day after working on this thing for 48 hours. He goes, "Is this your best work?" And I say, "Yeah, this is my best work." And I think from an individual perspective, contributor perspective, I always took that was a big learning in my life that I know that I could have. There's always room for improvement, right? And I could always go back and make the analysis better. I could always go turn over more rocks and make sure that I had thought through this really in a thorough basis. And for me, him asking if that was my best work, I still think about that every day. So as an individual, I go to work and make sure that I hold myself accountable from an individual perspective and make sure I'm never cutting corners, that I'm always being thorough. And that I'm always in my mind, what are my individual goals and objectives? I hold myself accountable. If you can, in an organization, find your people to know, find good people that hold themselves accountable to their own goals and objectives, you hold on to them really, really tight. So that's just a good story I have from my career that I take away and think about often is my very, very difficult boss who was right. and asking me if it was my best work, because I probably could have spent some more time on it and held myself a little bit more accountable to providing higher quality output.
And you bring up something that I think is really important, because in today's environment, I would tend to say things in the work environment a little bit different. There's, expectations sometimes from teammates and stuff that they may have to deliver according to what's important to them and not always with what the company wants. So I see a good element of what you do is being a strong leader is, empowerment, but with accountability.
100%.
When you look at it, you mentioned accountability a bunch of times. Have you found for yourself a way to really help communicate to your teammates? Everybody loves it, empowerment, right? But people sometimes when they get that meeting and they're like, what's your best work? And you're like, well, I don't want to be accountable for what my best work is. I just want to deliver it. I want to go home. How do you help frame it for them of why it's important? What's the why for that best work?
Yeah, I think for like something I like to do, one, like at the beginning of the year, we have an annual kickoff for the company where we review all these things, right? And that's a big hoopla and everybody gets excited. It's like a big pep rally. Say, this is everything that we want to do. This is how we're going to hold everybody accountability. And everybody is like, yeah, let's go, rah, rah. And then they leave the room. And it's like, how do you make sure that they stay locked in on those things? That it just wasn't a one-time thing because we made a big spectacle about it. And for me, like something I do within our company, I try to do is I send a round. I call it the Friday roundup, right? I send an email out to everybody in the company on Friday to remind everybody what the 3 most important things are for the quarter. How we're trending against our KPIs, what's coming up next week, what we accomplished this past week, and it's. I get a lot of feedback from the team on that they love those roundups because everybody's doing something related to the goals and objectives, but that email helps kind of lift the fog and recenters everybody on what the most important things are, what our goals and objectives are, what we're doing in the following week to again step towards those goals and objectives. So it's just constant communication. And I'm very, very transparent in the organization. Everybody knows should know exactly what's going on for the most part. And I find that over communicating on those things on a regular basis and being as transparent as makes sense to everybody across the entire company has been really helpful, and everybody appreciates it because it's like, okay, I can recenter here. And I'd send it on Friday on purpose because it's always been every week is a long week, and everybody reads it on Friday or Monday when they open up their email again. It's like, okay, that I can recenter. I know what our North Star is. I know what our goals and objectives are. I know how I impact those on an individual basis. And I know that Brett sees that and understands like what's going on in the company, and he's sharing stuff maybe that I'm not a part of that impacts me indirectly. So over communication is huge for us, and being really true and authentic and trying to just share as much as possible so everybody's on the same page. I found that to be really, really helpful.
You gotta love the transparency for sure. We're coming near the end here and we have a few minutes left, but like I'd love to have with anybody else, but especially like with you guys coming on, tell us a little bit about where LineLeader is about. What are your sort of BHAGs, probably a little bit that you can share with the public here. And maybe if you can touch on with your benchmark report that you guys did too. Yeah.
So if our company started in 2010, founders Chuck Gibbs and Seth Martin built a really, really amazing company called Childcare CRM, right? Think of it as like a HubSpot or Salesforce designed specifically for the childcare industry. It's a high-powered tool that we say, hey, that helps drive enrollment, increase conversion, and it's been an awesome tool to help operators really grow their business. We always say, hey, if you want to just run your business, we're probably not for you. But if you want to grow it, we'll help you go there. You just got to be committed. And then over time, like we've rebranded as LineLeader, and brought on a engagement and management system. So our goal for the market and for the operators out there is like, you can buy all these three things and you can have a unified solution, single sign-on, your data can flow, or you can maybe just focus on Enroll, and we'll sell it from a modular perspective. So you can buy best of breed, best of suite, but the magic is in all these things working together in a cohesive way. We are not perfect, right? Like everybody's on but we strive for excellence, and we've made a ton of progress over the past couple of years on this. And we have a really exciting roadmap for 2025 that, we'll continue to work and hammer through and power through, to be, our BHAG and our goal is to, be the best unified solution on the market, right? So that's ultimately what we want to deliver for you all as operators, and continue to get better. So just a little bit of overview on what we offer from a platform perspective.
If you were to say, because obviously we know that there's some other providers out there in the
Sure.
childcare management or the CRM space.
Sure.
What would you say is really your differentiators? What are one or two of your very top where you're like, this is why we are different. This is why
Yeah.
we're here.
Yeah, I would say as an operator, if you are serious about growing your portfolio, we're going to provide you with second to none analytics around your operation, especially from an enrollment perspective. And I don't know if I feel confident that we offer better tooling and reporting and kind of the data analytics side than anybody out there. That if you're really serious about going from 1 to 2 or 2 to 10 or 10 to 20, we're gonna unlock a lot of those data insights for you that other platforms can't. So I'd say that's where we feel we excel. And like I said, we're here to help people grow their business, not just run it. And if you're serious about that, you got to get into the data analytics side of your business and understanding what moves the needle, and how to pivot and be able to pivot quickly before it's too late.
Awesome. I love that. Absolutely. We had just a minute or two left, but I wanted to bring the attention to anybody who's here. And if you want to mention it, here is directly on your website.
Yep.
And this is the benchmarking report. If people want to sign up for that benchmarking report, you can grab it here. Maybe we'll have Sarah throw that into the chat. But if you don't mind telling us a little bit about what were some of the things that you found out through your 10th annual, report you did this year.
Yeah, so we've been doing this for a long time, 10 years in the running, and making sure that we can offer some of those data analytics and insights to operators to know how they're performing against their competition, right? The space is really interesting right now. There's a lot more supply out there. You see a lot of new franchise locations opening up. You see a lot more investment in the space. And demand is maybe spread across more supply, which makes it a little bit harder to reach your profitability capacity, right? So for us, we want to take all the data that we have and allow you to look at how you kind of measure up against the space to understand where maybe you can improve or where you need to focus your energy on. And for us, I think for us, it's like this survey is that this report is two things. It's sentiment from the space. We do a lot of, hey, how do you think? What are you feeling? So you can understand, like, if you're feeling something similar to other operators in the space. That's the first part. The second part is around hard data around conversion. So you can measure yourself against, hey, how many from 2 were scheduled to registered or enrolled, what's that percentage like, and how do I match up? And if I don't match up, I need to look at it because I'm probably falling below kind of like the average in the industry. So I think there's a lot of, the data is for you as operators to know, measure yourself against, and then understand how I can maybe get better. And we're here to help for that too. So if there's something where you look at the benchmark report, man, I'm way below this item, then let's talk. Like we're here to help you out and help you be really successful as EC operators in the space. And this report is just a lot of good data for you to understand how how you measure up against kind of the averages in the industry.
Awesome. Is there any strings attached for people to go there, fill it out, and download it?
No strings attached. Doesn't cost anything. Please do. There's also an enrollment operations book out there that we wrote this year to help, again, best practices and understand how you can maybe tweak your enrollment operations to drive, higher enrollment and fill up your centers. So there's no strings attached. And again, like we're here to help you if you need anything. And I genuinely mean that.
Awesome. Well, Brett, I want to thank you greatly for joining us. I got a couple slides to go over, but I want to say this has been an absolutely wonderful webinar. You, I think, came in with a very relevant topic, not only demonstrating on having an operational plan and calendar and how to get to culture, but how to actually hold people accountable for some of these elements. So great conversation. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and maybe we'll have you back on in the future. So I'm going to do a little bit of end of the call housekeeping here. So you can stay on video or you could go off if you want. That's up to you. And so for everybody else out there, again, if you are seeking a certificate, you will have that in your chat where you can grab the certificate. Also, too, if you are a decision maker and you are interested in learning more about Inspire Care 360, maybe it's about AskRegi, maybe it's about IC360 Rep, maybe it's about our ECE University. Yes, it's now ECE University, no longer Inspire University. So we have the domain ECE University. You are welcome to join us for a 30 to 45-minute tour. And if we do that, you'll get a gift card. We believe in the value of your time, and that's why we will not hesitate to shoot you over a gift card for spending a little time learning more about how we can benefit you. You will see coming up in a couple weeks, we have a individual by the name of Jason Lodi, who is the CEO of Aventus Education, and he's going to be talking to us about leading for change. So it's really about adaptive leadership. This sort of tags on to what Brett was talking about. It also tags on to what Alita was talking about. We've really sort of had this theme about running, leading operations. So I want to thank you all very much for attending. Thank you for being part of our webcast at Inspire Care 360. My name is Tony D'Agostino. I am the founder and CEO. You are welcome to reach out to Danielle, anybody on our team, or even myself, which you can find me right on the website. So thank you all very much. I hope you all have a wonderful day and take care, everybody. Bye now.